Diana's eyes widened with horror. What was this travesty unfolding before her? Just a few hours ago, she was sitting comfortably in her makeshift home, and now she'd gone on a journey that she'd never imagined on going, and she saw creatures she thought she could never fathom in her life. And it was nothing like in books. Indeed, her life was getting worse by the minute. She couldn't think straight. She was so close to being on her way north. Dorian, her new friend, or at least he was more of a friend than the other creatures she'd seen, aside from the mermaids, was lying on the ground in whimpering pain. He was losing blood very quickly. "Go," he breathed. "I can't take you any further." She didn't know what else to do, so she secured her purse and took off. More running, that's all she needed. Past the trees, past loose branches scratching her face, and past giant cobwebs that covered her. She was in too much of a hurry to care as she made her way across the stretch of land. She thought back to Dorian licking his wound. There was blood everywhere. Murmur's glint in his eye and the smirk on his face also flooded her mind. How her life had changed in just a few hours. Eventually, she found the edge of land. Diana could tell the water was rising bit by bit. She could feel the cool breeze and the smell of the ocean. It somehow gave her a peace of mind amidst all the chaos. And even with that peace of mind, Diana had managed to pass out. After hitting the cold ground, she dreamt of home. Not her cozy little house in the huge old oak tree, but of a real home, back when she had a family. The thought seemed so distant, as did everything else that happened to Diana since the merfolk pulled her from that cozy little tree house. And finding her dad seemed even more distant. A tremendous shake in the distance was what woke up Diana. She pulled herself into a sitting position and held her head. The earth continued to tremble, and each vibration was getting closer. Diana heard the sound of waves knocking against trees and rocks. A massive wave even managed to drench her, which would do her carry-on electronics no good. Great, she thought. As Diana stood up, the waves in the ocean seemed to dance around in circles. Then a giant figure rose from the depths of the dancing water. He looked like one of the merfolk, but he seemed so much stronger, more triumphant. He had shoulder-length gray hair and a gray beard. He held a long golden staff that separated into 3 different spikes at the top. Even after all that Diana had seen, she still couldn't believe what was standing in front of her. The waters seemed to calm down, and as soon as the ocean was still, Diana spoke. Or tried to. "Who are you?" she squeaked. Diana wasn't sure she was loud enough for that gigantic creature to hear. "I am Poseidon," he bellowed. Poseidon's voice echoed, and all else was silent. "Sure. Why not? Poseidon, it's not like Diana's situation could get any worse, really." "Diana!" Poseidon bellowed again. Maybe things could get worse. The god of the sea knew Diana's name. But how? "I can bring you to your father," he continued, "but first, you must do one small task. It is indeed a daunting task, but one that must be done to save the world you've grown to love so well." Diana was terribly confused. All that's been happening had happened too quickly. She suddenly saw a figure out of the corner of her eye. She looked over to see Murmur grinning. He'd followed her all the way to the shore. Diana wondered how long he'd been standing there. She looked back up at Poseidon, and back over to Murmur. And Diana closed her eyes, and it was then that she knew her journey had only begun.